We are going to move on today to lesson 5-3, which is all about estimating fractions and equivalent fractions. We've already touched a little bit on equivalent fractions, but we're going to start with estimating fractions. So what we're going to do is we are going to look at fractions, and we are going to estimate whether the fraction is closest to 0, 1/2, or a whole. We're going to estimate on the number line which one it is closest to. So we're going to basically pretend we are this person underneath this umbrella. All right? And you want to get the closest you can get to cover, right? I should have really had a person without an umbrella, right? That would have been a better analogy. You're figuring out if you're walking along the way here from 0 onwards, where is the closest cover that you can get to? Does that make sense? Like, if you are past a certain point, are you going to return back to here? Are you going to return back home? Or are you going to get to this stop? Right? It depends. If you're closer... My battery's running low. Oh, here we go. Are you closer to the half? Or should you return back home and get to the 0? And once you pass this one, right, it's raining, you're like, okay, here I go. At what point are you closer to the 1 or closer to the half? We call these benchmarks. Benchmark fractions: 0, half, a whole, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5. And when you are estimating fractions, I'm going to wait till I have all eyes up here because you're going to need to know this info. So I need your eyes for these 15 minutes. You're deciding whether you're going to get to the next stop or turn around and go back. So for instance, let's talk about this fraction right here. Let's take 1/7. 1/7. Right? We have 0, half, and a whole. About where do you think 1/7 is? It's 1 out of 7. So that would kind of mean you would need to take from 0 to 1, divide it into 7 equal parts, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7/7 would be a whole, right? 7/7. That's a whole. How many would be right here? This would be 0/7. What would be halfway between 0/7 and 7/7? Yes.
3/7 or 4/7.
Okay, right? So right here is going to be like 3/7, and right here is going to be 4/7, because halfway, the halfway point for 7 is going to be 3.5. Okay, so when we have 1/7, that is our fraction we're estimating. Do you think 1/7 is closest to 0/7? Closest to 3 or 4/7, or closest to 7/7? What do you think it's closest to? Charlotte? 0/7. So you're going to stay right here. Yeah, 1/7. You look at this top numerator and you say 1 out of 7 is almost like nothing. What if I said estimate 6/7? You look at the top number and you say it's almost a whole. It's almost 7/7. So you're going to estimate it at 1. Does that make sense? Where it gets tricky is if you have something like, let's say we have 5/7. Okay? And it probably will never give you something really right in between. It might say something more like this. It might say 4/7. Where's that closest to? Closest to the halfway. 3.5 would be exactly half. So you say, well, that's about half. You're comparing it. 4 out of 7 is about half. Let me see if you can get, let's give a few more examples. Let's find some that your book are going to give you. What about this one? Let's try 5/12. Raise your hand. I want to see who thinks they know about what that would be. Would that be closest to a whole, 0, or half? Remember, total of 12 pieces. So 5 out of 12. Is that closest to a whole, a half, or a 0? Raise your hand if you know. That shows me if your hand is down, you have no idea quite yet what we'd be doing. Ben, what do you think?
A half.
Half, you're exactly right. How did you get that it was closest to a half?
5 more, or 7 more to get. I don't know.
Well, here's how you can do it. What is half? What would half be? 6/12. 5/12 is pretty close to half, right? You would say 5/12. Well, half, you're always going to want to figure out what the halfway point is. The halfway point, if you're leaving your home, you're like, okay, it's raining. I just at least got to get halfway to the library where I'm going to go study, right? I got to get halfway, I'm going to get drenched. So you say, okay, 5/12. If you are at 5/12, 6/12 is the halfway point. So if you're at 5/12, you're almost there. You're going to want to go to 6/12 rather than go all the way back to 0/12. Does that kind of make sense? Let's try a few more. I think the more we do, you'll start to get the hang of it. How about we try? This one's too easy. I shouldn't even give it to you, but I'll give it to you. 7/8, 0, half, or 1? Frankly, what do you think? 0, half, or 1? 1. 1 would be 8/8. Well, 7/8 is pretty close, right? Good job. How about 7/15? Think of what a whole would be and what a half would be, and you know what 0 would be, and figure out which one you're going to round that to. Stella, what do you think? Think of what a whole would be, and then what a half would be.
Okay.
We'll come back to you. Rocky?
Okay, a half.
It would be a half, you're right. Think of 15. What would the halfway point be?
7.5.
7.5 is halfway. Well, look it. That's almost exactly halfway. So you're going to estimate that it's a half. All right, let's get a little harder on you.
Oh, stop.
Here we go. Let's do one more easy one, then we'll get hard. 2/11. 2/11 is closest to what? 0? Are you going to like head back home like I'm not far enough to keep going? Are you going to run for cover at the halfway point? Well, let me think. What's half of 11? What is all of 11? Which of these stops are you closest to when it starts pouring like it does here in Florida? Which cover are you going to take, Zari?
Back home.
You're going back home. Go back home. 2/11 is not far enough. Okay, how about this? You are at, here's a good one. 41/84 of the way there. Where are you running for cover? 0, half, or a whole? 41/84. Stella?
Half.
Exactly. How did you know that?
Because half of, well, yeah,
Yeah.
half of 84 is 82. Or 42.
42, and you're like almost there. You're like a couple more steps and you're under shelter, okay? Let's see. I'm going to do one more and then I think you guys will have it. This is half of our lesson today and I think you've got it. How about this one? All right, let's do 198 out of 404. Where are you running for cover? Ella?
Home.
You're going to go all the way home, full?
Not half.
Halfway, because look, this is about 200 and about 400. You know what you could also use here is compatible numbers. These are really wonky numbers. We don't like wonky numbers unless we're going to do all that computation. This is about 200, this is about 400, that's about halfway. Let me give you one more, and then we're going to move on to the second part of our lesson. How about where are you going to go? Where are you going to find cover with this one? Wait a minute, something looks weird here. Naomi? You are going back home. That means 303 out of 298. You went past here a little bit and you're like, oh my word, rainstorm, going right back here. You're closest to 1. You guys got that, right? Totally not hard. Now, let's move on to the second part, which is equivalent fractions. Okay, this is easy. Equivalent fractions, you know the rule that when you have a fraction, there are 2 ways that you can make an equivalent fraction. You can divide or you can multiply. and it will be an equal or equivalent fraction, right? Equivalent fraction means just an equal fraction. So if on your homework it says, write an equivalent fraction, no problem. That just means write a fraction that's equal in value to this one. How do you do that? You divide or multiply the top and the bottom by the same number. Give me a couple minutes, guys. 5/10. So I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by the same number. Let's do it. Somebody give me a number. 2. Multiply the top by 2 and the bottom by 2, and I'll get 10/20. Equivalent fractions, yes? Awesome. Now somebody give me something that I can divide the top and the bottom by. Same number, 2. Can we divide 5 by 2? No. Give me a number that I can divide the 5. Divide the top by 5 and the bottom by 5. That equals 1/2. So guess what? 5/10 is equal or equivalent to 10/20 and 1/2. Those are all equal fractions in value. Does that make sense? So, what would I do, now that you know that, if I give you any fraction in the world? It might look complicated, but you say, no problem. I might say, you're like, oh my goodness, that is such hard math. That is so not 5th grade. How am I going to do that? And I say to you, just write me two equivalent fractions to that. It doesn't matter what the number is, because you know to write an equivalent fraction, you just multiply the top and the bottom by the same number and you'll get an equivalent fraction. Or divide them by the same number. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Walk me through it. Bo.
You could go 1 and 5.
Tell me what you're going to do to the top and the bottom. That's the same thing. What are we going to do? We are going to...
The top will turn into a 1.
Okay, what are we doing? Are we dividing by a number? Are we multiplying by a number? Remember, in order to figure out an equivalent fraction, we decide what we're going to do to the top and the bottom, and it has to be the same thing.
Okay, divide by 100.
We're going to divide the top and the bottom both by 100. So if you take this divided by 100, what is it? You just move that decimal over once, twice, and you get 10. And you divide this by 100, 1, 2, you get?
100.
So he decided he was going to divide by 100, and he got equivalent fractions. But it's up to you. You can say, I'm going to divide by 1,000. You can say, I'm going to divide by 2. You can say whatever you want. I'm going to multiply by 7. As long as you multiply the top by 7 and the bottom by 7, you'll get an equivalent fraction. So 1,000 over 50,000, I say, oh, I'm going to decide I'm going to multiply by 7 to get me an equivalent fraction. 1,000 times 7 is 7,000. 50,000 times 7 is 350,000, right? Remember how you do that? 7 times 5 is 35, and then you add all the zeros back in. That's it. Easy peasy. Estimating fractions, equivalent fractions, no problem. There's one extra thing we're going to learn with the equivalent fractions. It's how to fill in the blank, because I know you've got some of these. So for instance, let me pull one right out of your book. What if I said 2/5 is an equivalent fraction to, let me put some letters in here, right? Because we're like pre-algebra. We're just going to get started at n, which is an unknown number. It's like a blank. N over 15. How do you figure this out? It's saying this is equivalent to this. How are you going to figure out what it is? Charlotte? Okay, so watch this. We are going to say, what did we do to 5 to get 15? What did we do? We're trying to find out what operation we did to get from here to here. What did we do? What did we do? Eli?
I remember.
What did we do? Yes? We multiplied by what? 3. So what do you have to do to the top to get an equal fraction? Yeah. So we say we got to multiply by 3. So n equals? Yes. Perfect. Let's try another one of those. These are kind of fun. Let's try 3/8 equals what over 24? All right, remember, you have to figure out with the numbers you've got, what did I do here? What operation, what number, and then I need to do the same thing here. What did I do right here, Riley? What did I do? To get from 8 to 24, I multiplied by 3, that's exactly right. So what am I going to have to do up here, Riley, to make it equal? Multiply by 3. And so 3 times 3 is? Yes. So 9 would go in the blank here. I'm going to do 2 more that are going to be a little bit more difficult, and then I think you guys have got it, so hold tight. Here we go. I'm going to put up here, let me try and do a hard one. Okay, see if I can stump you on anything. How about this? Don't say it out loud. I want you to figure out what n is. See if you can think of it in your brain. I want to see if I can get how many people I can get their hands raised. Keep your hand down if you don't know, it's fine. But I want to see how many of you are like, yes, I get it. All right, I'm waiting for some people to look at the board. Okay, I've got most of you. Remember, you're just figuring out what did I do to one to get the other. Okay, walk me through it, Zachary. You said to yourself, oh wait, what's your answer first of all?
7 times 4.
What is n? We're going to figure out what n equals what.
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay, what does n equal? That's our answer, Michaela.
14.
N equals 14. How did you get 14?
Because 28 divided by 4 is 7.
Okay, so you said, what did we do to the 28 to get the 7? Because that's what we'll need to know to figure out what to do to the bottom. You said you divided by 4. So then you said, what do I do to 56? I have to also divide by,
4.
and you got, how many of you got 14? Good. Let's do another one, and then I'll feel good like you know what you're doing. How about this one? Oh, I got it right. Okay, here we go.
Okay, that one.
Everybody, I want everybody to get this. You can do this. You can do this. I want everybody to tell me, what does n equal? Look and see what you did on the bottom so that you know what you need to do on the top. Look and see. All right, just hold your hands still. I'm going to wait until I can get as many hands raised as possible. All right. Oh, we're nearing 100%. We're nearing it. We're so close. So close. So close. Mateo is going to walk us through this. Mateo, what is your answer for what n is? Mateo says the answer is 36. Who agrees? Yes. Mateo, how did you do that? You said to yourself, you asked yourself the question, what? What's that? He said, what did I do to this 11 to get 99? And you said, you multiply by 9, so therefore to make it an equivalent fraction, you know you have to multiply by 9, and he got 36. Questions. You guys have rocked this. You know now how to get that guy with the umbrella to back home, halfway, or all the way to his destination, because you're going to look at the numerator and say, is that about half of the denominator, right? Or is it like almost 0, or is it almost a whole? That's the first part of this lesson, and the second part is just figuring out equivalent fractions. If it says to you, write 3 equivalent fractions, you're like, wow, that's the easiest in the world. I'm going to pick multiply by 100, multiply by 1,000,000, multiply by 2, or divide by 10, or whatever. If it's fill in the blank, you have to ask yourself what you did to the other part to get your new answer. Questions, or you feel good? Yes, question?
Is this our lesson for
Yes, it's
tomorrow?
both lessons for tomorrow. Anybody else? Question? All right, if you feel ready, then I would love to give you time to start working on your homework. Oh, it's Wednesday. You have no homework. Okay, so I'm going to have you do a little bit of your morning work just so I can tell if you've got this down or not. I want